Welcome back to the Crime Decoder today. We're diving into the haunting disappearance of 23-year-old Bryce Brogel in Center Township, Minnesota, a case that began as a routine missing persons report and spiraled into a complex web of lies, betrayal, and cold-blooded murder. From a suspicious father's tale to a shallow grave in the woods, this story will leave you questioning everything. It was a cold, overcast day in Center Township, Minnesota, on October 26, 2022. The lakeside community, nestled in Crow Wing County, was quiet, its resorts empty as the tourist season had ended, and temperatures hovered just above freezing. This rural, sparsely populated area, known for its serene beauty, was about to become the backdrop for a tragedy. Bryce Brogel, a 23-year-old Brainerd native, was last seen leaving a home in Center Township with Michael Lex. The pair headed to a storage facility just a third of a mile away, barely a 10-minute walk to sort through Bryce's belongings after a 4-month cross-country trip. Cordelia, who had returned with Bryce that afternoon, stayed home to shower and unpack, expecting them back soon. As hours passed with no word, Cordelia grew anxious. She sent text messages to Bryce. "I love you. Miss you already. Are you coming back for me?" But there was no response. When Michael returned home alone, he delivered a shocking story as they were leaving the storage unit in his white Ford Escape. Towing a U-Haul trailer, 2 unmarked vehicles with flashing lights resembling undercover police cars intercepted them. Unidentified men, showing no badges or credentials, allegedly handcuffed Bryce and drove him away in a dark gray SUV. Michael claimed he was briefly detained in a separate vehicle before being released, with no explanation of who the men were or why they took Bryce. Cordelia, trusting her father, sent more texts to Bryce, pleading for answers. "Baby, what's going on? Are you okay?" The silence was deafening. By October 28th, with no sign of Bryce and no response, she filed a missing person report with the Crow Wing County Sheriff's Office. Her report was sparse, relying entirely on Michael's bizarre account. What had happened to Bryce Brogel? Investigation was about to uncover a truth far darker than anyone could have imagined. Investigators zeroed in on Michael Lex, the last person to see Bryce. They located him at a family Halloween party in Brainerd on October 28th and brought him to the storage facility for an interview. Michael, expecting their questions, was cooperative but nervous. "I figured you'd want to talk to me," he said, noting that Cordelia had mentioned filing the report. Michael recounted the events of October 26th in detail. He and Bryce arrived at the storage unit around 5 p.m. in his white Ford Escape, towing a U-Haul trailer loaded with Bryce's belongings. They spent about 45 minutes sorting through items, with Bryce deciding what to keep or discard after his long trip. Michael described the process as unhurried, with Bryce carefully considering his possessions, around 5:45 p.m. as they drove out of the facility. Michael claimed they were stopped by 2 unmarked vehicles with flashing lights, not traditional police sirens, but the kind used on undercover vehicles. He described one vehicle as a dark gray SUV and the other as an unmarked car. The men who didn't identify themselves or show badges separated Michael and Bryce. Michael was placed in what he called a plain Jane SUV with a small computer or device on the center console, which was folded down. Bryce was put in the gray SUV, which Michael couldn't confirm had a cage like a typical police vehicle. After a brief interaction, the men drove off with Bryce in handcuffs, leaving Michael to return home alone. He told Cordelia that Bryce had been arrested, possibly for something related to their trip. Michael's story was detailed but suspicious. He claimed he didn't know the men's agency or the reason for Bryce's arrest. He also revealed tension with Bryce, admitting he didn't like him. Michael described Bryce as possessive and a heavy marijuana user, alleging that both Bryce and Cordelia carried 2 phones, a regular smartphone and a disposable flip phone, possibly to avoid tracking. He suggested they might have gotten into trouble during their trip. Mentioning Arizona and Washington State, and even claimed Bryce had told Cordelia he expected to be arrested, possibly by the FBI. When asked about Bryce's phone, Michael initially denied having it. But just 10 minutes later, he admitted to taking it from the vehicle and throwing it into a trash can at a Brainerd gas station that evening. His reasoning? Feared it could be used to track Cordelia, who he believed was in danger from whatever trouble Bryce was in. This contradiction, coupled with Michael's criminal history, set off alarm bells. Michael Lex, born in 1977, was a Brainerd native who grew up in nearby Pequot Lakes. His parents were divorced, and his mother had remarried, giving him younger half-siblings, including Jen, Baker, and Patrick. After graduating from Pequot Lakes High School in 1996, Michael moved to Center Township, working construction and later taking on odd jobs as a self-employed handyman. He was devoted to his daughters Cordelia and her younger sibling, even sporting a tattoo reading Daddy's Little Girls with a stylized silhouette of them. But Michael's past was troubling. In 1999, at age 21, he pleaded guilty to third-degree criminal sexual conduct, receiving 5 years probation. In 2018, he pleaded guilty to fourth-degree criminal misconduct involving a developmentally disabled adult who initially refused but eventually consented under pressure. He admitted to taking 4 polygraph tests in the past, all of which he claimed to have passed, a point investigators noted during their questioning. Michael painted a picture of a strained relationship with Bryce. He alleged Bryce was abusive to Cordelia, citing bruises on her face from an incident in March 2022, which she explained as wrestling. He described frequent verbal abuse and fights, claiming Cordelia's younger sister had heard her crying. Michael also mentioned a call from Cordelia in July 2022, a month into her trip with Bryce, asking him to come get her. She never shared her location, and days later she said everything was fine. Michael believed Bryce and Cordelia had gotten into something criminal during their trip, possibly in Arizona or Washington, and he feared Cordelia was at risk. Cordelia, however, described a different home life. She saw her parents as helicopter parents with boundary issues, once hiring a private investigator to follow a previous boyfriend. Her mother's Huntington's disease and her younger siblings' transgender identity added tension to the household. But Cordelia viewed her father as the most controlling presence. Despite this, she and Bryce were deeply in love, bonding over their shared love of dogs and dreams of an off-grid life. Bryce, born in Brainerd in 1999, had just turned 23 during their trip. His dream was to build a yurt in Alaska, a vision Cordelia shared. Investigators quickly debunked Michael's story of an arrest. They recovered both of Bryce's phones, a smartphone, and a flip phone, from the Brainerd gas station trash can exactly where Michael said he'd discarded them. This raised questions. Why would Michael take and dispose of Bryce's phone if he believed he was in police custody? Cell phone data from Michael's device revealed more. On October 27th, at 4:45 a.m., less than 12 hours after Bryce's disappearance, Michael returned to the storage unit for 22 minutes. He then drove to a remote area of public land near Lake Edward, staying for an hour. This timeline didn't align with his account of a random encounter with law enforcement. On October 29th, deputies executed a search warrant on the storage unit. They found a bottle of bleach with traces of both Bryce's and Michael's DNA, substance testing positive for blood, and drag marks consistent with a heavy object being moved on a sled. The evidence pointed to a crime scene. The next day, October 30th, investigators followed Michael's cell phone data to the Lake Edward site. There, they discovered a freshly dug area, covered with leaves that didn't match the surrounding foliage. Branches were stuck in the ground, and the leaves appeared deliberately placed to conceal the site, though the attempt was sloppy. An excavation team dug up the area and found a shallow grave. Inside was Bryce Brogel's body, shot in the back of the head. In a ditch near the storage unit, police found a sled covered with a blanket, stained with a dried red-brown substance later confirmed as blood. The storage unit, the sled, and the grave were pieces of a grim puzzle coming together. The case broke wide open on October 28th, when Michael's half-siblings, Jen Baker and Patrick, contacted police. After his interview at the storage unit, Michael attended Jen's Halloween party in Brainerd. There, he asked to borrow her car, claiming he was worried the police were tracking his truck. When Jen pressed him for answers, Michael confessed to shooting Bryce in the back of the head at the storage unit. He admitted to using a sled to move the body, which was too heavy to carry, and covering the grave with leaves from Jen's garage. He assured her the body would never be found, saying, "Don't worry, they'll never figure it out." Jen, horrified, called her brother Patrick, a night shift clerk in Pequot Lakes, who had a trusting relationship with local police. Patrick shared Michael's confession with authorities, requesting anonymity to protect himself and Jen. Both siblings confirmed that Michael believed Bryce was abusing Cordelia, a sentiment well known in the family. However, Michael's earlier claim to investigators that he wanted Cordelia to leave Bryce on her own was now exposed as a lie. Further evidence pointed to premeditation. The landlord in Washington, where Bryce and Cordelia had stayed, reported that Michael had called months earlier, asking if Bryce had hurt Cordelia. When the landlord mentioned seeing Cordelia with 2 black eyes, Michael vowed to kill Bryce, saying he'd already dug a grave. Patrick corroborated this, recalling Michael expressing the same intent. On October 26th, hours before Bryce and Cordelia's return, Michael retrieved a firearm from Jen's house, where he stored his guns, claiming he needed it for a rodent problem at a job site. This contradicted his later claim that the shooting was spontaneous. In November 2022, Michael was arrested and charged with second-degree murder without premeditation. In March 2023, a grand jury indicted him on first-degree premeditated murder, citing the overwhelming evidence of planning. His trial began in April 2024, drawing attention to the small community of Center Township. Michael took the stand, admitting to killing Bryce, but insisting it was not premeditated. He claimed he brought Bryce to the storage unit to confront him about abusing Cordelia, hoping to provoke a fight and press charges to keep Bryce away from her. He said he had the gun with him after dealing with vermin at a client's house earlier that day. According to Michael, he confronted Bryce about the alleged abuse. Bryce responded, "She's mine, and I'll kill her before I let her go." Michael claimed this threat pushed him over the edge. He shot Bryce in a moment of rage to protect his daughter. Michael recounted past incidents to support his claims. He described seeing bruises on Cordelia's face, which she explained away as accidents. In July 2022, a month into her trip with Bryce, Cordelia texted him to come get her, but never shared her location. Days later, she said everything was fine. Michael insisted he acted out of love for his daughter, believing Bryce was a danger to her. Cordelia, however, painted a starkly different picture. She denied any physical abuse, insisting she and Bryce were happy together. Her social media posts reflected deep love and grief for Bryce. On October 31st, 2022, after Michael's arrest, she wrote, "A very special person was taken from me, but I know now he'll never leave. He's my guardian angel forever. I love you so much, Bryce." In March 2024, as her father's trial loomed, she posted, "I think about you and Bryce all the time." She never supported Michael's claims of abuse, maintaining that her relationship with Bryce was loving and fulfilling. The jury rejected Michael's defense. The evidence was overwhelming: the retrieved firearm, the pre-dug grave, the bleach used to clean the storage unit, the sled with bloodstains, and the concealed burial site all pointed to a carefully planned murder. Michael's confessions to his siblings and his prior statements about killing Bryce sealed his fate. In April 2024, he was convicted of first-degree premeditated murder and a lesser count of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Cordelia continues to mourn Bryce, sharing memories of him on social media. Her posts reflect a deep sense of loss and a refusal to accept her father's narrative of abuse. The case exposed a fractured family dynamic, with Michael's controlling nature and criminal past clashing with Cordelia's desire for independence. Her mother's Huntington's disease and her younger sibling's transgender identity added layers of complexity to the household. But it was Michael's obsession with protecting his daughter that led to tragedy. This case leaves us with haunting questions. Was Michael genuinely motivated by a desire to protect Cordelia, or was his hatred for Bryce driven by personal resentment? Did Cordelia's denial of abuse reflect the truth, or was she protecting Bryce's memory out of love? Could there have been more to Bryce and Cordelia's cross-country trip that contributed to Michael's actions? And what role did the family's strained dynamics play in this tragedy? We want to hear from you. What do you think about this chilling case? Was Michael's act truly premeditated, or was he a desperate father pushed to the brink? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's discuss this unforgettable story. Thank you for joining us on the Crime Decoder. If this case gripped you, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join us for more in-depth true crime investigations. Stay curious, stay safe, and we'll see you in the next video.